Welcome to Live Well, Be Well, a show to help high performers improve their health and well-being. In a world that focuses on negativity, it's more important than ever to embrace gratitude and discover its transformative effects on our lives and minds. With many studies showing the profound impact of gratitude on our mental and physical well-being, it's time to shift our perspective and celebrate the small wins where gratitude can pave the way to success. For this conversation, Alex and Mimi Ikonn welcomed me into their beautiful home in West London. They're the masterminds behind the 5-Minute Journal, a powerful daily practice with over 1.7 million copies sold, built on proven principles of positive psychology. Today, we're unraveling the secrets to unlocking that reality. This conversation has the potential to spark a transformation in your life. Are you ready to embrace it? I started off my year actually with a gratitude practice to dedicate as a new habit. But what I've realized from doing that is, even though I love it when I'm writing down things that I'm grateful for, what I've noticed is that what benefits me is that when actually I reflect back on a time when I've actually received things. Mm-hmm. And I found that to be even more of a superpower in my gratitude practice.
I think what you said is very important, is that practice, any practice, a habit practice as we chatted about, or a gratitude practice, it's a personal, individual approach. Mm-hmm. I think what makes gratitude more powerful is if you actually take the moment to feel that emotion. And for me, gratitude really started with a very dark period of my life. And the reason I want to share with it is because a lot of times people associate gratitude with when it's like, oh, you're happy and ever lucky. And then that's why you should be grateful, is when moments are all great and shiny. The reality is we need gratitude when times get tough, when times get challenging. And that is personally when I discovered gratitude myself. It was actually when my father passed away. And in that moment of death and darkness and grief, you realize there's two pathways that I can take. I can take the pathway of light, or I can take the pathway of darkness. And the pathway of darkness is thinking of what was taken away from me, what I don't have anymore, what is not enough in my life anymore. I discovered gratitude as a way, as a practice, that what did I have, or what do I have in this moment? Well, number one, I'm alive. I'm still here. Mm-hmm. I get to live on. Number two is I had a father. I can be grateful and appreciative for having that figure in my life. Maybe it was not perfect, but I still had him. Many people don't even have fathers in their life.
Can I just ask what age that was when your father passed?
I was around 17 years old.
So if we're talking about this in the context of today, a lot of people are now starting to become very self-aware of gratitude practices, mental health, the importance of self-awareness. But going back those years ago, this wasn't a common thing. So how did that even come into your life? Because one, that's such a wise thing to think about at the age of 17 in a very traumatic moment, but it also wasn't that readily available. I know it's a free thought process, but actually the information to inject that into your life is very different from then to now. So I'd love to know how you got to that path of discovery.
Yeah, that's a great question. It can be a very divisive figure for some. Mm-hmm. But Tony Robbins, he gave to my mom personal power to tapes. So Tony Robbins has this thing, personal power to like cassette tapes. A lot of people probably listening don't even know what cassette tapes are. And it was my first introduction to this whole world of mindset about gratitude. And he would have this thing called Hour of Power. So every morning, get up, have your shoes ready, get active, get outside the house, be grateful, go for a gratitude walk, say all the things you're grateful for in life that you have and you don't have. And that was really, I'd say, there's many things that inspired let's say us and then creating the 5 minute journal. But it definitely was those moments of going out for gratitude walks with Mimi, right?
I love this story.
Yeah. So, and when we also had nothing even later on. But my earlier introduction to gratitude was that. It was like, what is this idea of going for a gratitude walk, of going outside and saying things out loud, which people probably think you're crazy. That's why it's easier to do it when you're with a couple of the things that you're grateful for. And so for me, those personal power two tapes came earlier than when things started going downhill. And why I want to bring this up, I think is so important, is that when you do these mindful practices, you may do them in times of difficulty. However, they can also help you prepare for times of difficulty and challenges and help you overcome those better. It's the same way, people go to the gym to train their muscles and their body to be strong, or you eat as well clean to make sure to look after your body so that you don't get sick. And I believe with mindful practices such as gratitude, life will throw you challenges, and we'll all, have either already come across them or we'll come across them again. Those practices will help us overcome. So in those moments when I was dealing with a lot of grief, and at the same time I also had, I had an injury around the same time, and said I was going to be disabled. My arm wouldn't move. And in those moments, once again, you have a choice to go dark and be a victim. You then have also a choice of, what can I do in order to not go deeper in that dark hole? And that's where gratitude really came. I was like, okay, what can I see? What can I appreciate in these moments? Hopefully this podcast, with people listening, maybe they haven't come across of actually needing to have that practice in your everyday. One of the things that we refer to the 5 minute journal as a toothbrush for your mind. And, we brush our morning, hopefully every morning and night. How come we don't have a practice as a human collective to take care of our mind? That when we wake up in the morning and when we go to sleep, we train and take care of our mind. It doesn't have to be the 5 minute journal. You can have your own little practice. You can have a little notebook on the side of your bed where as soon as you wake up, you just write 3 things you're grateful for. And before you go to sleep, you write, what are some great things that happened today? So just deframing your mind on the good. And that's why I think overall the 5 minute journal has resonated with so many people, because it's a simple practice that doesn't take long. The same thing like brushing our teeth, even though sometimes we also skip out on brushing our teeth and trying to do it as fast as possible. But if we do it well and take that 2.5 minutes in the morning and 2.5 minutes at night, it may just change your life.
Mm-hmm. And I think for those people who are skeptical, I want to share a little story. Years ago, I came across this practice called the HeartMath. Have you heard about it?
No, I haven't.
So it's really cool because you can also get a tool that you attach to your earlobe and to your phone, and they want you to go back into your memory and relive any moments of joy and excitement, anything that made you happy. You go back into the past, you relive these moments, and as you do, you can look at how it affects the coherence of your heart. Wow. Because our heart beats at different intervals. When we're happy and when we're sad or angry or fearful, the coherence changes. And the coolest thing about this app that you can download and the device that you can do is, for anybody who's skeptical and likes to ask questions like myself, you can see it live working. As a fearful thought comes to your mind, you can see it completely changes your heart coherence. And as you go back into the gratitude and all the good feelings, again, it changes it in a positive way. And to me, that was a great proof and evidence that gratitude does work. And I love that you do it in a similar way.
I do. Honestly, it's like finding what works for you. And I think coming across this notion that I need to remember more of the positive things that have happened through my day as opposed to the negative things is really powerful, because we have this tendency to latch on, and it's a human instinct, right? We're built for survival. So anything that negative comes our way, we need to try and handle in survival mode, but we forget those positive things. And it's not that I don't acknowledge them in that moment, I do, but the things that I remember seem to be the negatives. So having that moment where I was reverting back in my practice, which wasn't just kind of like, what am I grateful for? It's like, no, what gratitude have I received? Like, that was so powerful to me. And then the more I looked into it, when we actually remember and revert back to receiving that thanks, it actually works with the neuromodulator serotonin, and this is our happy hormone. And when I can start understanding the physiological process that's happening within our bodies, is actually making our serotonin happy hormone work in our bodies. You're like, wow, this is actually making a real change. And so I found that really interesting. And that's why when Alex, you told me, when we first met about you and Mimi going on these gratitude walks, I was like, you're reflecting back on these moments, and it is actually scientifically changing the way that you're feeling.
Yeah, no, I think to add on to that, I really believe that your thoughts and your mindset, they shape and create your reality. And I think we often forget this, that we just think we just end up somewhere and that's how we live our lives. Before we create the reality, it is first in our minds. So even the same thing in regards to the whole world that we live in, that we're shaped by, was in somebody's mind before. Think about it. It was in somebody's thought, an idea. Hey, it would be great to have some recording devices for our voice. And I remember even the history, right, of microphones and cameras. Somebody thought about this and created this reality. Well, if we as humans can create technology, artificial intelligence, cameras, Wi-Fi, internet, planes with our thoughts, what makes you think that we can't create our life in terms of our everyday feeling and state that we have? And we sometimes focus on the external things and material that we can create. However, the feeling and emotions, we can create those as well. And that's why it's so important to take that responsibility of our thoughts and ideas and our mindset to be able to shape and create our lives.
It's interesting that you just mentioned the word there, responsibility. Can you explain a bit more on that for me, please? Because I think people might listen to that and go, well, I am responsible. I'd love you to explain a bit more about how being and taking responsibility for yourself can have actually such a dramatic effect.
Yeah, I think for me in my life, it has shaped me to create the reality that I now live in. And it came from also a fairly, not a happiest of places. I was coming home one night, and I grew up, as an immigrant in Canada. And my parents actually also divorced when they immigrated, because being, coming to a new place, not knowing the language can be very difficult on the relationship as well. And also not having money. My parents divorced. And I was coming home, walking from my junior high school, and I just felt, that moment of victimhood. And I think we all felt it, where we just want to feel sorry for ourselves, just how bad everything is, how I don't really have a father. My mother is always working. We're on welfare pretty much. She's working night shifts. We never have enough money. I'm coming home to an empty house, and I'm probably just going to make myself pasta as this teenager. I don't really have friends. I'm a loser. All this negativity and thoughts that just like raining down on me in that moment. And in that moment, I kind of just looked up in the sky and just wanted to feel bad for myself. And I think often we just want to have that moment. And I had that moment. But after that moment, I said, you know what? No one cares about me. And once again, it's a very victim type of thought and idea. No one cares about me, but me. I can choose and care about myself. If there's anybody who can create the reality that I live in, should be me. I shouldn't blame my parents or the government or the trauma of my childhood, whatever has shaped me. What can I start doing now to create that tomorrow? At Intelligent Change, our company, we have this little slogan that we have: thank yesterday, love today, create tomorrow. And it still rings so true even from that moment. I think it was one of the kind of defining pillar moments in my life when I thanked yesterday, even the bad stuff that has happened to me. How can I love today, what is happening today? What is in my power to do today? And how can I create tomorrow? And it doesn't mean that, hey, my life changed and all of a sudden I've, everything was straight on up from that moment. The reality is, of course, I would still have my downs, and I would go even further down. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom, and so we don't even know where that rock bottom is. We hit even more rock bottom. However, that moment was when I started taking and looking at my life and stopped blaming others for my reality. And I started taking responsibility for my ability to respond to whatever situations in life throws at me. And this is why it was super important for my life after that, and taking each moment, doing the little practices of gratitude or whatever it might be, to then change and shift my reality.
I mean, my gosh, having that moment at 13 is mind-blowing. You're definitely an old soul in that context, because I'm like, at 13, I would just never have popped into my head. But and I think for many people listening to this, having that realization that we can have responsibility and love ourselves. And it can sound so cliche, isn't it? You must love yourself before you love somebody else. But it's true that self-compassion plays such a big moment. And I guess you've had such a rich journey into this, Alex. And I guess when you met Mimi, like, how did you respond to this? Like, how has it impacted your relationship?
I was lucky that I grew up with a mother who was very much into self-growth. So from an early age, I was exposed to a lot of these concepts. But I would say gratitude is something that Alex specifically introduced to me through the work of Tony Robbins. And one of the things that Tony Robbins recommends is that going out for a walk every morning, going for an hour of power. And at the time, we were both unemployed, so we had the time to do it. And I remember we'd go out together, and first start with saying all the things we're grateful for that we did have. And, it could be the eyesight, the body, that we're able to move and see and hear. And then, grateful for each other, grateful for our family. And then the cool part about gratitude is also the manifestation part, is being grateful for things that you don't yet have, but saying it in the present tense as if you already have them. So we would say things like, we're grateful for our successful business that brings millions of dollars, because at that moment, we didn't have financial abundance. And that we get to travel the world, and we have all these friends who are also entrepreneurs. And one of Alex's dreams was to meet Richard Branson, and literally 2 years later, he was on his island. Like, all these things that for us at that moment would be unthinkable dreams. And I remember we were both unemployed at the moment. My dad would call me and be like, how's your day? What are you doing? And I would be like, oh, we're on this gratitude walk. And then there would be like that silence. And he would say, you guys need to get a job. But you know what? We believed in it. Yeah. And now we know it works, because we've completely transformed and designed and are living the life of our dreams. And of course, the 1 hour walk wasn't sustainable. That's why partly we created the 5-minute journal, that we never have excuses now not to practice this mindset of abundance and gratitude, that every day anybody can have 5 minutes a day. And if you don't want to journal, that's okay. You can, as you go, as we were talking earlier, as Alex used to go in the shower, and every morning he would chant to himself, I'm grateful for my body, I'm grateful. And I would be like, what is he doing in the shower? I don't understand. And then I just discovered that was his daily habit. He would verbalize it. He would affirm it to himself. Whatever works, give it a try and see what sticks. The goal is that it sticks and becomes part of your life and a daily habit. Some concepts, it's not enough to understand. Like love is a concept, but we need to practice love. Gratitude is a concept, but if you don't practice it, you don't embody it, you don't live it. So we need to make it a practice, a daily practice.
So what's your mantra right now?
So one of the ones that I really love recently that I actually heard on Instagram from this really cute 91-year-old, super energetic and inspiring woman is that every day she says that it's the best day of her life. And I found it so inspiring. So now when I wake up, I say every day, today is the best day of my life. Today is the best day of my life. And as I say that, I am reflecting on how my body feels, what decisions I would make if I truly believe that today, in fact, it was the best day of my life. What would I do? What would I say? How would I act? Who would I see? How would I spend my time? I think we need to be more intentional about how we spend our days because we don't have forever. Many of us would like to believe that we do, but in reality, we have limited resources and time is one of them. And I think being more conscious and appreciative of how we spend our time can also transform our lives.
I just think it's really inspiring because there's obviously so many different ways that we can approach this, right? For me, it's like reflecting back on those moments. For you, it's waking up and saying like, today is the best day of my life. For you, it's kind of saying, wait, I'm going to take onus on this responsibility of what's happening right now. There's so many different ways that we can approach this. And I think that is something that's really important to also consider, that if one route doesn't work for you, then try another. Thank you for listening to this episode so far. I want to quickly tell you about my sponsor, Arena Flowers, who I personally reached out to sponsor this show, as I've been a loyal customer of theirs for 2 years and I love everything about them. If you follow me, you'll see Arena Flowers are always around my house and they really brighten up my day. For me, a vital pillar of my self-care routine is self-love, and having flowers around my house is so important for me to achieve that. If you're watching the video version of this episode, you can see spring has well and truly arrived at my house. But what sets them apart from the rest? Arena Flowers are the UK's #1 ethical florist. All their bouquets are hand-tied and delivered in fully recyclable or compostable packaging and free from single-use plastics. Plus, their flowers are sourced from fair trade certified farms. So if you're ready to put a smile on someone's face and positively impact the planet at the same time, download their app now and enjoy free delivery plus 20% off your first purchase. And if it's a last-minute present, make sure you order before 9 p.m. for next day delivery. And of course, you're more than welcome to send me some. For anyone who's listening to this and just goes, okay, well, this sounds great, but I feel in a really bad place right now. You know, this feels like a struggle. What advice would you do for them to cultivate just that step towards starting this?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question to ask because there's still, especially if you're not practicing, there'll be skepticism about, this is very, especially in this country, very American and, rah-rah and woo-woo.
Well, as soon as you mentioned Tony Robbins, I think half the listeners was there.
Exactly. And for people even, and I understand for some people even hearing that name, be like, oh, he's just a motivational speaker and things like that. The reality is there's millions of people, including myself, that have been positively affected in regards to being able to actually transform and shift our reality in our life. It's not just woo, it's reality. And it's also physiology when you are able to actually see the states of these people transform, especially as you said, high performers, athletes who do these practices of visualizations. And so my answer to this question of how does it all start, you do have to face yourself and that identity that you want to show up as in the future. Because many of us are stuck in our ways of being with this identity of who we are now, of our situation at that moment. So for me, let's say growing up pretty much of, social housing kind of situation, being very poor, in that moment, it would embody a poor kid that's never going to get anywhere. Instead, I chose to embody and visualize and see and create an image of what does a successful person in my mind at that time look like? What do they do? How do they act? How do they show up? What's their facial impression? How do they think of life? How do they, really show up as every day? And so the point and advice that I would give to anybody is, first, before you do any of this stuff, because your current person may be against practicing gratitude, because I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. But who is that? Who is that voice? Where did you get that voice from? Who taught you those things? A lot of times it's our society, in our also schools, that really put us in a certain box. And it's important for us to understand, once again, taking that responsibility that, hey, I can, another great book that we mentioned, kind of, Mindset by Carol Dweck, talking about fixed mindset and growth mindset, understanding that I can have a growth mindset. I am not fixed as a person. I can transform my life, my mindset, my thoughts, because a lot of people can also be stuck in these thought loops of just constantly being so hard on them. And a lot of times that voice comes from, their parents maybe being very hard on them and telling them how they're not enough and whatever. And for some people, it drives them and it makes them even stronger. They want that negativity because it will drive them stronger. However, for most of us, that thought loops actually just stops us from taking any action of sorts, even if it's just saying one thing that you're grateful for to transform your life. And this is why I would say, first, create a vision of your future life, of your state, of yourself as a person. Who do you want to be? If there was no blocks, who would you want to show up as? As we're kids, we would imagine ourselves as superheroes. Well, here's your turn now. It's not too late. We're still kids, just a little more grown up. Let's imagine yourself in that state. And that doesn't. I'm not saying that you're gonna fly, right, in that state. So, but
although you could do. Have you not seen those guys that have the wings?
Yeah. Hey, it is possible. Definitely possible. However, even to take it to that notch of using the exercise of creating that vision and reality of who do you want to be in this world. And then you understand that a lot of these people, and this is what I have learned, they have these practices. Entrepreneurs, the reason many of them are successful, they are more optimistic. They see challenges as opportunities, and they're able to transform that into value in business. And all as individuals can do the same thing with our lives.
As you're saying, around that negative loop cycle that so many of us can get into, and I think every single person listening to this has been in that negative loop cycle maybe every single day, and it spirals. And the thing is, I think what you're trying to also implement, and what you have done with the 5-minute journal, is retraining that. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is that neuroplasticity. If you keep training the same muscle into a negative loop, it's going to get stronger. And that's your inner judge coming out every day. If you try and switch it and create new neural pathways, which we know from scientific research we can do, it's a muscle. We just have to keep training it. And it's, people say, how long does it take to form a habit? 66 days, it's 255 days. It's as much as you put into it. And I think, but making it sustainable is also really important, right? And so it's really easy in these conversations to think, how much am I not doing? I'm listening to this and I'm not doing all of these things. But it's actually saying, like, what is the one small thing that you can do, right? And it's like building it up. And I'm sure when you met Alex and, hearing, having his pivotal moment at 13, you're kind of thinking, wow, I've got a lot more to learn on this. But actually just starting it, isn't that kind of also like the biggest thing? What is the smallest thing that you can do?
I think ultimately it all goes down to committing to make a positive change in your life. No matter what we say here today, or if you read 20 different books on self-growth, or if you get a guru, unless you choose and you decide inside of yourself that enough is enough, I no longer want to suffer, I want to change my reality, and I'm committing to it. And you might create a commitment mission statement for yourself. One of mine is, I commit to feeling great in my body all the time, because I realize that no matter what I have externally, if I'm not feeling good inside, all of it really means nothing. So make a commitment that matters to you. Maybe it's maybe it is transforming your body. Maybe it is seeing the good in your life and starting practicing gratitude. But once you commit to it, repeat that commitment every day and realign. You will start a habit, and at one point you'll drop off. We all do. It's okay. Again, restart, as I was saying earlier. But the most important thing is to decide that you've had enough and you're going for it.
What's kind of been the biggest impact in your journey, would you say, for you two individually? on this journey of personal growth? What's kind of the biggest standout factor that you can recognize?
Well, the biggest factor is the reality. Is I think you can't question the transformation. I come from some little small town in the middle of Russia, where my parents left to create a better life for us. And even still then, being an immigrant, now being in London, in probably the best neighborhood in the world, and be able to have the freedom of time, of space, of reality, of having an incredible relationship in our lives, in our family, in our home. I think Naval has this quote as a house full of love and a healthy body and mind that cannot be bought, that must be earned. And what I want to say that is the way you earn those things, and even in the financial success as well, but especially the harder things to earn, even the relationship and the feeling of how do you feel yourself that we've been speaking about. That takes, as Mimi said, dedication and practice, and doing it day in and day out, and committing to yourself that you will live life to your best abilities that you can. And that doesn't mean you will be overnight success. To the state that we're in now, that journey started, as I said, in me being this boy at 13 years old, making this commitment, having lots of ups and downs, having lots of downs, and not giving up, and transforming my life to be in the state. I could have, I was speaking to my mother the other day, and of course, this is an unfortunate war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. My mother's Ukrainian, so I'm, a very complicated situation. And the thing that I said is, the reality is I could have been like any of these people dying right now on the front for we don't know what, but I could have been in that situation. I don't see myself really that being no different than also a person who could have ended up homeless or alcoholic. We as souls on our journey can take so many turns where life can give us something bad, and then it's really our choice of what we'll make of that situation. One of my favorite anecdotes, and not sure to how it's true or not, but the anecdote goes, there's two brothers. One went to jail. The other became super successful and has an incredible relationship with his wife. It's an entrepreneur business, has an incredible life. But one has a very unfortunate life. One has an incredible life. Both grew up in the same upbringing. What happened? So they asked him a question. Why did you turn out the way you did now? And they both said the same thing. My father. That story is so powerful. And what it means is, one said, I don't want to be like this guy, because their father was, say, alcoholic, jail, all that stuff, abusive. So one said, I don't want to be like this person. I want to have a different life. And the other just followed the same patterns. My kind of way of approaching life is, there's so many times in my life where I could have taken a turn and, I got arrested, actually. That's another kind of story.
That's an unusual fact you didn't say in the beginning.
It was when I was juvenile, and around, because that time of 16, 17, and that's what happens to a lot of youth. When there's a lot of difficulty in the home and their thing, they can start hanging around with wrong people. And as I did, and it wasn't like anything major, but I had to go to court, do all that stuff, do some community service. And I remember being there in court with other juvenile youth who already decided on their fate. They decided that the society is against me. It's me against them. I'm going to be badass. And it brings kind of strong emotions to me, even sharing this. When I was there, I was like, I don't want to be like these guys. I want to make sure I do things right now. So what I'm trying to kind of communicate and say is that life is the biggest teacher of all, and it always gives you chances. Do you want to take this side, or you want to take here? Where will you go? And in fact, we have that opportunity each day that we wake up, and that's why Mimi and Sharon, today is the best day of my life. Each morning we can choose to take that opportunity of, how am I going to live this day? So let's not even talk about 10 years out. How are you going to act and be this day? Because it's our, present that shapes our future. And even though you may have tried to build a habit for the last 5 years and you've never succeeded, well, today's another day you can give it a shot. And today's another day you can try to have a gratefulness practice. Or today's another day you can have a practice of just appreciating somebody in your life. Maybe your father, your mother, even though maybe you felt like they have mistreated you. What can you see the positive? Everyone's trying to do their best. Everyone's just going through their struggles, and including yourselves. So that's why, to me, it's once again just my long way of kind of communicating is saying that today is a beautiful day, and you can create that tomorrow with it. And that'll be my message.
Yeah, for me, it would have to be learning not to judge. And all judgment starts with self-judgment.
I was about to say, the inner judge is the worst.
Right?
Yeah.
The reason we judge others is because we judge ourselves. People who have learned to accept themselves tend to be very accepting of others. Everything is a reflection of self. And I grew up in a very judgmental culture. I come from Baku, Azerbaijan. I spent the first 16 years of my life there. But I don't think being judgmental is exclusive to Azerbaijan. I think it's the same here in England. It's the same in most places in the world. And it is so hard to break that habit because, and once I had my child, I learned about this 0 to 6, 0 to 7 is that formative years of a child. And if you grow up in that upbringing, it becomes your subconscious mind. Is this CD that you play in the mind that you almost need to like erase and rewire. And this is why, let's say, for practicing gratitude, we'll always recommend to do it first thing in the morning when you're the closest to your subconscious mind and right before you go to sleep. Because these two times are crucial times where you can, there's lots of studies to prove this as well for those who are listening and skeptical and saying, yeah, right. Please look into it. Google this. The first few minutes when you wake up and the first few minutes right before you go to sleep, anything you say to yourself in those moments is going to your subconscious mind. And slowly you get to rewire those patterns that are not serving you in a positive way. And I can see that now after practicing this for so many years. I have so much more love and compassion towards myself. And as I practice that with myself, I have less judgment for the rest of the world. And I always focus on what I have power to do, always focus on the solutions rather than the problems. And I see as a society, oftentimes we're still very much focused on all the things that are wrong with us. Like, oh, there's a plastic crisis, there's this crisis, that. Yes, there is. Fine, we can acknowledge this, but what can we do?
That's the biggest question,
we waste
isn't it?
so much time and energy focused on all the things that are wrong. But if all of us collectively sit down, think of solutions, take responsibility, we can change everything in a matter of a year. But people avoid responsibility because it's difficult. You have to do something, right? So I think refraining that within my mind has truly shifted my whole reality. And of course, great superficial benefits come with it as well, right? Like I get to truly live the dream life, not just internally by feeling better, but also externally by having incredible relationships, friendships, people like yourself constantly coming to my life who are inspiring, who are uplifting, and who reaffirm that I'm on the right path. And yeah, it starts with daily practice. You have to make that commitment and choice that you want a better life for yourself.
I want to just add one thing, which is, I believe, very important, is that us in sharing our journey and coming from humble beginnings, we want to communicate to people listening and watching this that we're not special. That's something that I, think about, and it might be like weird, but it's understanding that we're all going through this human experience, and that us going through our own transformation and be able to create the life that we've envisioned for ourselves, that other individuals can also create their reality and shape it through these kind of practices, whether it be it's in your career, in your business, in your personal relationship. Especially right now, it's a difficult time for many people all across the world, especially here in the UK or even in developed countries. This decade is wild. And in this wild decade that we're living in, I think it's very important to communicate that these simple practices that we're speaking about today, they are very simple. Don't take them for granted. Don't take it for granted how simple actions, just as, waking up and saying one thing that you're grateful for, or before you go to sleep, think of one good thing that happened today, can help you transform your reality in your life. And especially in these challenging times where all around you can be hearing just all the negativity and how everything is wrong with the world. That's the power. That's the power of our mind. That's the power of our reality, that we can come together as a collective and start thinking of ways we can shape a better future.
Yeah, honestly, I find it really inspiring because no one will know this, but you guys know this. I'm about to go on a digital detox this weekend, which everyone listening to this will probably laugh and be like, just put your phone away. But it's true. And in essence, it's harder than it. I've created a really awful habit of waking up. The first thing I do is look at my phone. My phone is my work, and it's not a good habit to be in. I'm very aware of the habits that I've created, and but also you need that time, right? You need this headspace to start getting into this mindset, because it can be very hard to cultivate this way of thinking if you're in a cycle. And something that I'm going to do this weekend that's helped me in the past, and I thought I'd share this to see if this, might help somebody after listening to this podcast. And I've been doing it for 3 years, not the digital detox, but taking some time and writing a letter to myself in 6 months' time, writing things of, what I would like to have achieved in that time, goals within my personal life, goals within and I say goals, but kind of things that I'm hoping for, and things that I want to envisage happen in my life, where I want to be in my work, my home life, all of these different pillars that we have. And I think we can easily segregate work and life very differently, but they are one. We work 8 hours of our day. It becomes kind of part of our overall life. It becomes part of how it affects our relationships. And then I write that letter, write down kind of 3 key things, and I speak to myself in present tense. And so I'm using that present tense language. So I'm writing to myself as I'm sitting there in 6 months' time. And then I date the letter, and then I open the letter in 6 months' time, and I reread it. And do you know what the really interesting thing is? Every time I've reread it, those things have happened. And I'm going to be skeptical here and say something you probably would disagree with. I'm not a manifestation person. That's not where my brain sits. I'm not for or against it. But for me, I visualize it in a way of, if I don't think about these things, I'm never going to have them in my vision. So it's planting that seed to know that I've started a thought process. And it's interesting how that develops. And I'd honestly really advocate that for anyone at home, just to write this letter to themselves in the present tense.
Both of us will have lots to say on this topic. There is science to this. And
I love that you're doing this, not me. Great, go.
And this is also what was one of the pillars that has shaped us creating the 5-minute journal. So there's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. So RAS. And this is a part of our brain that helps us focus. As we're here right now, as Mimi is talking, I'm able to focus on her. As you're speaking, I'm able to focus on you, maybe some other people in the background, or things happening, or cars outside, or the different noises. But when I'm present, I'm able to be present with you, because that part of our brain helps us to have that focus and presence with that subject matter that we have in life. And the same thing it is used by when we communicate something, or somebody brings something to our attention. There's somebody in the orange jumper, and all of a sudden I'm like, I've never seen anybody in the orange jumper, but you brought that to my attention, and my brain will now start picking it up, and it will see it. So when you're creating that letter, when you're writing that letter to yourself, what you're doing is you're really activating that part of your brain to choose and see those patterns in the real world. And so your brain will then help you navigate towards coming closer to those patterns because you brought it out. You brought that awareness into real life. And this is really the idea around the 5-minute journal and why it's important to write the things that you're grateful for and what will I do to make today great. Also looking forward towards the future, looking into the day and how you're going to shape your day. For yourself, it's looking into the 6 months or 12 months, whatever it may be, or 5 years, however you want that horizon to be. But shaping and focusing your brain to help you recognize those patterns. And you can do the same thing in the negative, right? And that's what most people do. They focus on the negative. They say, start complaining, all that stuff. And that same part of your brain can be, once again, used for good or bad. So then that brain will then say, okay, great. You're telling me to focus on the negative. I'll bring you out all the negative to say. Because there is no right and wrong.
Yeah.
The brain is just there to help you just do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it's a very powerful exercise. I'm actually very curious of Mimi, of your...
I think manifesting is getting a bad rep because of the way people abuse the word. It's important to define what that means to you.
Yeah.
To me, manifestation has just becoming very clear. What are my values? What are my defining most important values that I live by? And what is my desired vision of the reality I want to create? Because once you have those two, you know where you're going. As another famous quote goes, is if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. You have to decide if you want to be a creator of your life, that this is the reality I want to experience. If you're not happy in this moment and you don't change anything, where do you think you will be in 5 years? Right? You can answer your own question.
It's like my work day. If I don't plan what my work day is, I don't know where my work day is going to go. I could just be sat behind emails all day. I don't become productive. Whereas if I write down kind of 3 things in that day that I need to achieve, I have to make time to achieve them. Otherwise, I will literally, do washing, make a call, answer an email. And I kind of get to the end of the day and I'm like, what have I done? And that structure is important.
So going back to manifesting, to me, it is about being specific about my desires and my wishes of what I want to experience in my reality. And then working towards them, taking actions, because without the action, obviously you won't be able to get there.
And to your example of productivity, that is so true. This is also with our company, Intelligent Change. That's why we're focused around creating products to help you create a positive change in your life, whether it be, through gratitude or through productivity. Because same thing in my experience, if you're not creating that structure for yourself, and I'm the most, free spirit, I don't want to have any structure. And that's the reason why I became an entrepreneur, because I don't want to be 9 to 5. However, what you learn, if you really want to accomplish and create the things that you say, even we've created, it all takes just those small effort. In our productivity planner, the framework is, you just focus on doing 3 to 5 tasks a day, but in ways of priority. So meaning your most important task of the day is your first task. And even if you just do this one task, right, your focus is it's not even, forget even about even 3 to 5. What's the one most important thing that you can do today in order to help you move forward towards creating that dream or building that business or creating that relationship, whatever it may be? Just one thing. And I think most people in life will have 100 things that they want to do, and they'll usually start doing the stuff that feels easier or comfortable, or they'll do it, but they're not doing the most important thing that actually really needs to be done in life. So in order to manifest, to create your life, start also putting together those actions. And then it can be a small action, just one action a day for 30 minutes on that thing. Over time, it really compounds. And that's how you're able to make that transformation. Because when I look back, I look at myself like I'm a pretty lazy person to a certain degree. I don't want to state that, kind of also even communicate, but I'm just stating the reality. Most people will look from the outside, be like, wow, you've done all this. You built and sold a business. You've, building another business. You sold millions of copies of your products. If I look back, it's really small actions. It's not like I'm working day and night. It's just having that ability to focus as Mimi said, on the things that are aligned with your values and the things that you want to create in your life.
Well, it reminds me of one of my favorite anecdotes, which I think most people have heard of, but if they haven't, it's like focus on the step and not the staircase. And I have to remind myself, because I'm that person with that 100 things, and actually it's what's my priorities right now? What do I need to action? I really hope you're enjoying this chat, but I'm going to pause it for just a second to thank my sponsor that has made it all possible. Lima are the ultimate wellness brand right now, and they've completely revolutionized what a supplement can be. Live Well, Be Well is all about finding evidence-backed ways to improve your physical and mental health, which is why I am so excited to have Lima on board. Because we're all too familiar with the symptoms of stress, poor sleep, problem skin, or inflammation. Lima's award-winning supplement contains 10 powerful ingredients, all in one unique formula. So you don't have to worry about the hassle of taking multiple supplements. But listen to this though, and this is why they're one of my favorite wellness and beauty brands. They've created a game-changing device called Lima Laser. It's the world's most powerful at-home laser and can transform your skin in as little as 12 weeks. You can use it to help treat so many major skin conditions, and it's safe for all skin tones and types with zero pain or downtime. It's also completely safe to use around the eyes, despite it being 100 times more powerful than LED. Lima is an award-winning brand trusted by household names like Ellie Goulding and Victoria Beckham. You may have also spotted Gwyneth Paltrow, Hailey Bieber, and Kim Kardashian all raving about their Lima lasers on Instagram. So experience the Lima difference and begin your journey to a more vibrant you. Don't let life's ups and downs hold you back. Visit lima.life/podcast. That's Lima, LYMA.life/podcast today to receive 4 months of Lima's award-winning supplement for just the price of 3. Because there's no better feeling than feeling your best. Okay, so we're going to go on to a couple of questions from the people that would love to hear from you personally. So this is from Emily. She has asked, what has been their biggest challenges that they're happy to share they have faced?
For me, it would have to be depression, anxiety around the age of 23. Funny enough, they say your brain stops growing around 25. So I feel like I felt there was a shift mentally happening in that moment. But also what happened around that age is we got married and we started a business. So a lot of great things happened. But at the same time, in that moment, when the good things happen, you start feeling safe. And then when you feel safe, you start releasing trauma. So a lot of my trauma from, I guess, the first 23 years of my life started releasing around that time, which was a very scary period of my time. And at the moment, I thought, this is it. Like, how am I going to live? You know, it was crippling anxiety to the point where I couldn't fly. I couldn't even go into a lift. I couldn't, and I'm an extrovert. I love being around people, but I couldn't go to any gatherings with lots of people. I just even developed social anxiety at that very short period of my life. And as difficult and crippling as that experience was, it pushed me to look inside. And we talked about it off the camera and off the mics, but it pushed me into doing a lot of inner work. And that's how I discovered meditation. I went on this silent meditation retreat for 11 days. It's called Vipassana. They have centers all around the world. And it was the most difficult, but the most powerful thing that I have done for myself that helped me release a lot of trauma and go back to living. So for anybody who is struggling with mental health, don't struggle alone. Look for help. There are answers. And I'm a great example. I'm definitely on the other side. It's been many years. It's not that I never experience fears or never feel anxious, but whenever I do, I remind myself it's within my power to use the tools available, such as gratitude, such as meditation, to realign, to breathe well. Again, exercising is also huge in mental health, but there are answers. You don't need to suffer unless you choose to. You have the power to change your reality.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. That's so powerful. And I also just want to add in there, because I know that you said this off camera for anyone listening. You did try Vipassana a couple of times. And also I want to mention, because it's something that I didn't realize, and I think a lot of people will link that to privilege. It's free service.
Yes.
And so anyone can go.
Absolutely. Vipassana is free. If you complete it, so the first time I was telling you, sharing the story earlier today, the first time I went, I had a misconception about meditation. I thought it's easy and zen and I'm just going to bliss there. And then I sat there with myself and all these things started resurfacing and I didn't know how to handle it. And it was just overwhelming. So I ran away on day 3. I still think it was helpful. But
helpful. And so helpful to people to hear this.
But if you leave early, they won't even take your donation. So the whole thing is free. You can stay there for 10 days, 11 almost, and they feed you. And if you finish it and you feel like it's benefited you, then you can donate whatever you can afford to donate. And I love the purity of that. And Vipassana is all about just breath and your bodily sensation. There's nothing else. There's no visualization. It's just working with what is. That's what I really love about it. And I struggled a lot. I'm an extrovert. So for me, it was one of the most difficult things I had to do. I literally thought I was going to die. I remember I told Alex, I cannot go there. I'm going to die. He said, well, if you die, you die. You have to face it. And then I knew I have to. Yeah.
Wow. Powerful words from you there, Alex. If you die, you die.
I know. Tough love. I think for me, obviously, we've covered many of them. So definitely having my father pass away was very difficult and challenging. However, as we chat about, very uplifting in regards to seeing the opportunity in life that life gives you. That death is one of the, as Steve Jobs said, one of the best inventions in life. It keeps us. I think a lot of us are sleepwalking. To be honest, I think I want to say that too. We don't want to confront death and that we will die one day. However, it's a very tough pill to swallow. But once you swallow it and you live with it, you're like, let's make the best of life. So that's one challenge, is facing death, but also be able to understand the beauty of life and to make most of the everyday.
Gosh, I felt like I should have ended on this question. Thank you, Emily, for giving that in. The last one, and Tony, what is their definition of happiness?
For me, happiness is being and feeling good with yourself, with your body, with your mind, with being able to look yourself in the mirror. To me, that is happiness. Happiness is being safe in my own body, with my own mind, and not being hard on myself. To me, that is happiness. So like, I know people can think of whatever about me, but as long as I'm happy with myself and I approach the day in that way, I'm happy. and I think that's the most important thing for me, at least, is having that state with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Alex. I think for me, it is also feeling good inside and feeling joy and energy to live life. Because that is fundamental to everything else in life.
That kind of inner space is just contentment, isn't it? It's finding that like contentment and peace within yourself. And then happiness just kind of follows it, I think. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. I'm saying bye now, but for anyone who is on Apple, I'm going to ask you one extra question. So if you're an Apple subscriber, you will hear an interesting question on the 80-20 principle that I want to ask you guys. But for anyone who's not on Apple subscription, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. It has been a morning full of richness, and I'm very thankful and very grateful for your time this morning. I know we've had a few tech difficulties. Not that anyone will know by the time they listen to this podcast, but I'm really grateful just for the richness of ending my week with such inspiring conversations with you two, and inviting me to your beautiful home, and just taking the time and the space to do this. So thank you so much. I feel like I should do this every time before I go on a digital detox to write my letter. I now feel very inspired. For anyone who is listening to this and wants to know more, I would just love you to explain to everybody about intelligent change, and who hasn't heard about the 5-minute journal, and also how people can reach out to you on Instagram.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for having us. We're super appreciative, and it's been an enlightening conversation. For anybody that wants to find out more about us, you can find us also on socials, Alex Ikonn, Mimi Ikonn, Ikonn. the website, intelligenchange.com. And Intelligent Change, we're really on the mission to help 1% of the global population create a positive change in their lives. We really believe that a company should exist to want to see how we can help people live better lives. And that's what we're personally really excited about. And this is really just the beginning. So look out for Intelligent Change. You can follow us also on socials. We have a great weekly newsletter where we just bring a lot of great insights to just help you see the good that exists in this world.
Thank you for having us. I really enjoyed our conversation. And I have a YouTube channel as well. If you want to dig into that, it's Mimi Ikonn.
Amazing, guys. Thank you so much. And can you just give Intelligent Change's Instagram handle as well? So
at Intelligent Change.
There we go. I just want to make sure we got all of the information in there. It will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning into what a richness conversation. I hope you can start your day, week, evening on one moment of gratitude. So thank you so much, guys.